Grown black folks talk. When the savage mistreatment of black women hits close to home. Today is June 2nd, and I've been talking for several weeks. I've been putting up videos about black men who have abused women, institutions, churches, have found that their day of coming to, uh, of being carried off, and black women are the ones telling their story, has been kind of picking up. And then, of course, we have discovered in this last week that even a former president, cannot escape humiliation when uh, certain things come to light and come due. And it had to do with his exploitation as a married man of, and in adultery, of a prostitute. You can do the stupid stuff you can do, but what you can't do is get away with it forever. So if former presidents aren't getting away with it, I don't know how black men who want to live like this think they're going to. But today is June 2nd, and something I don't often talk about because until this young lady was ready to start telling her story, I was not going to tell it. And I'm still not going to get into any details per se. But a student of mine, a child when I met her, has grown up into a beautiful, talented young woman, a woman whose abilities, as she continues to develop them now in a supportive interracial marriage with a supportive multiracial community. Her talent will eclipse mine. In 15 years, nobody will know me. You might, pick up, have a book of mine. But in terms of being a musician and an artist, ain't nobody gonna know me. And I'm gonna be fine with that because she will have eclipsed me. And that's fine. I'll be in my late 50s then and ready to go sit down somewhere. And delighted to see younger black women doing it big. I just gotta make sure that Project 2025 is beat down and gotta make sure that I don't vote for anybody that won't repudiate it. And I gotta work against everybody in my local area. But see, my local black community is taking an L today. And I went on the platform she told her story on today and said everything this woman says happened. It's one thing to know that 18 to 60% of black girls are abused before reaching age 18. It's another one when it hits close to home, like this. It was her father and one of his friends. And see, what happens is one of the things you find out as a young black girl, as you become a woman, you're little, you're cute, you're talented, and maybe you get to be supported in your black girl magic. Unfortunately, some of our parents think that their children are the shadow by which they are going to live their vicarious dreams. And then, because black men are encouraged to disrespect women by one another, they're encouraged to use up women. It is singly unfortunate when a man like that has a daughter, because eventually she's going to turn to a grown woman with her own mind, and then he goes back into the habits he's always had. With her, with all the forms of abuse that are tolerated by black men. And then they're going to have the audacity to say that, and I've seen this, the daughters that speak out against their fathers should be killed for trashing their father's legacy. No, these men trash their own legacies because they forgot something, just like Lamar Whitehead, Ernest Williams, Tory Lanez forgot something. The people you leave behind determine your legacy. Now, I was reminded this morning of a teacher whom I admire, never met, but just admire the legacy. His students and his friends are still reeling people in to check out this man's work to this day. It's been 7 years since he closed his eyes to this world and went to wherever he prepared his soul to be. I don't speak the language well enough to be able to get a huge number of clues. I just look the way his biography rolls from the mouths and the testimony of the people who knew him. I have no idea, but I know this. Again, his legacy he had to leave in the hands of the people he left behind. You cannot buy anyone. You can't find, you can't pay nobody. You just can't do it in two, three, four different languages to say a word against this man. You occasionally will see somebody saying, he was really too decent a man to pull off the role that he was playing because he couldn't convince us that he meant that. That's a compliment. But see, he's not tooting his own horn. This man has orchestras. And even when he's mentioned in the light sidelight of bigger stars, they mention him. It's a side note, but it's like the most loving side note anybody ever made. It's like you don't even you're even a bit player in this story here, but even your bit is gonna be beautiful. We gonna set you up real good, even though this ain't about you. See, that's the legacy you can have as a man. And then you can have your daughter get up on the day of your death and talk about how the day of your death is also the day of her freedom. That's a choice. That's a choice that Black men are making with their daughters. And since Black women outlive men with their wives, with the mothers of their children every day. And see, I happen to know that the individual was super trifling to a blasphemous level. My wonderful father also bears witness to that. He and I talked about it afterwards, how God blocked it up. I mean, it's just like he played one game too many, and the Lord would not even let us help at the end. He locked us out because God the Father was done. And it was time for that young lady to be free. And as I said, in support of this young lady on the platform that we share, there are Black women who enabled the foolery too. It is a grief of mine to me that this is so. It's a grief of mine to me that Black older adults, mature adults, old enough to have children in their 20s. Like I got a text on what Saturday night, but didn't see it till today. My students are out there traveling the world, still want their parents to get in contact with me, let me know they graduated from this and that, and all that. That's one way of going. And then there is having to show up and bear witness when your students graduate to the point that they can tell their story. And it's a story like that. It grieves me as an older Black adult that it took another community to provide a refuge for this wonderful young Black woman. It grieves me that we have failed. And I say we because I now have to attend. Y'all see me out here doing these videos, talking about crypto. One of the reasons that I'm so passionate about these things is because we have to have the ability to get our sisters out, and that involves finances. That involves having global resources and connection and community. There were people that had resources, but they weren't going to apply them the way they needed to be applied. There were people like me who did not realize how serious it was, and in San Francisco would not have been able to pay rent. But the Lord sent someone to step up. I suppose I could have. If someone else had not stepped up and push it come to shove, I would have figured it out. My family and I, we would work together, we would figure something out. But the fact that it was not ready, cash in hand, that's not going to happen again. Mm-mm. I'm not going to exploit anybody else doing it. But no, we have to be able to get our sisters out. And that goes to what I want to pass on to those of you who are of goodwill. I really don't have anything to say to the type of men who trifle and play with God and abuse the women and children in their lives. I really don't have anything to say because you already know there's condemnation greater than me. It's my job just to warn you. And you get no quarter over here. No. Go to where you prepare your soul to be with your master, the devil. Unless you ready to repent and be saved. That's what you can do, unless you're ready to do that. But I want to advise the rest of us who are somewhere in the middle, who will be hearing stories and having to make up our minds. I lost a friendship that I valued over Rhoda Osmond for the same reason. The young lady who said she was hit with a brick, and everybody kind of went back and forth about this. But I'm like, if your eardrum was punctured, the only way that this can happen for you to fake that is if you took an ice pick or something and literally blew out your eardrum. And I took anatomy, so I know how unlikely that is to happen. I happen to have enough. I was an A student in that, in both high school and college. So I already know, no, that ain't what you did. You would have had to sustain some major blow that you would have done to yourself. It is very hard to give yourself a significant head wound. Your body fights against you doing it. And it's also extremely hard for you to puncture a hole in the ear. Your body fights against you doing that too. Anything involving your head. But people just going hard out here for why this black woman didn't need all that attention. Why this black woman had to be lying that these men could not have done that. That ended up being the last straw. Because I can't side with people that side with the abuse of black women. I can't be friends with you. I can't associate with you in any significant way. Something else I don't also talk about. There were a whole bunch of black women in my church who I grew up under who thought they were going to treat the next generation the way they treated me. Would you like to know who they ran up against trying to do that? Would you like to know how that came out for them? Because, like I said, the people you leave behind are the ones that tell your stories. I want to encourage us as grown black folks. We need to live our lives in such a way that the next generation of black people does not count the day of our death as their freedom. I will also add here that there are black young men who were abused by their mothers. And among the few black men that I allow in my world, one is coming back from a terrible situation like that. And so as we relate as colleagues more than anything else, I recognize there's a lot of anger. A lot of things that he's still working out, and sometimes because this is what his culture encourages him to do, he forgets I ain't the one. But even as he's forgetting I'm not the one, I am the one to set the boundary there and let him know, look, I'm only going to go so far with you. I'm not going to abuse you. I'm not going to be dismissive and disrespectful to you ever. But also understand you can and will disappear from my life if you do not observe these boundaries. I'm not your mama. Therefore, I'm not your mama. I'm not going to abuse you, but I'm also not going to take any mess from you. I don't know what your mother's situation was with your dad. I don't know what your grandmother's situation was with your mom, but because they had to take abuse and pass it down on you, I don't take abuse from men like you. Therefore, I don't have anything to pass on. But I don't take mistreatment from men like you. Govern yourself accordingly. That's your only two choices. I will jack you up from here to United States Code 17 if I have to. But it's complicated dynamics because I'm trying to be as supportive as I can while understanding that this young person has been severely abused too. It's hard work. It's nasty work because we as Black adults are not protecting our children. Fathers are abandoning their responsibility, and that leaves the door open for predators when fathers are uncles and friends are not the main predators. 60%. And obviously not all fathers, because I have mine that my dad would have. Everybody in the neighborhood knew. Deanna and Samantha, yeah, you better leave them alone. That man is packing heat. That's a whole military man. Y'all think y'all tough. No, no, no. Not, no. Y'all ain't ready. And then one day, Sergeant Love very nearly did knock the block off somebody. I've always been well protected by the men that I have known, which is also why it's so grieving to me to realize this is not the norm. This is the exception. This is so frustrating to me. But one of the things I may not allow myself to do from a privileged position is to tell other Black women it ain't that bad. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because my students, male and female, are not lying about the abuse they've experienced from their parents. They're not lying. Black women who are using social media to come out and tell their stories are not lying. If you bother to understand a little bit about the world and about anatomy, you can realize this stuff isn't being made up. Black women who are telling their stories, Auntie Love on Why Aunties said, everybody got mad about TikTok because the black girl follow train. Well, Black women have stories to tell about America that America doesn't want told. You know, for Facebook, while I was going live, just bearing witness with this young woman, low frame rate, blah, blah, blah. You don't have the quality necessary. I'm like, well, let it be a low frame rate. It was fine. But you know how it be. We don't get to tell our own. How dare we tell our own stories? Because see, like I said, who inherits tells your story. Like Jill Scott getting up here finally writing her song about how betrayed. See, your legacy is in the hands of the people you leave behind. You get to decide whether you're going to be counted among the tyrants and wicked people of the earth, or whether the day of your death is going to be something that people mourn, but also know that you went to where you prepared your soul to be and have that ability to celebrate. This has really disturbed me. Today I've been disturbed. Anniversary stress is a real thing. Spring is hard for me. Now, this happened 2 years ago. This was the same year in which I also realized that it was time for me because serious things are going on. It's time for me. I had COVID-19 in May. In June, I left Themis and Thoth, and it was time for me to be where change could be made. And then the following June, things began to kind of roll out a second time. But the thing about it is, the stuff we talk about on Grown Black Folks Talk is really happening to real people in our real local communities. If we keep talking about it, nothing changes. We can talk about it and talk about it and talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. We can get an understanding. Auntie Love took us through the matriarchy theorem about name the problem. You do have to do that. But then we got to start moving down. We're going to talk about this more. We're going to spend the entire show going through this theorem of how to solve problems based on her career in nursing. Because, in nursing, if you name the problem and you don't do anything, the patient dies. Well, all Black women and girls and our Black children in general are going through it. Because, like I said, I know young men abused by their mothers too. That is a thing. It's not a thing that we talk about as much. It's not a thing that is as common, but it does occur. We have Black women. Auntie Love has said it publicly. I'm not putting out anything on her that she has not put out. She said, we got at least 15% of Black women who also have broken to the point that they can manifest the same abusive psychopathic behavior as anyone else. And she lived through that too. Live your life in such a way that the day of your death is not the freedom day of freedom for your victims. You may have been victimized. You have it within your ability to admit that's what happened and that you are in a cycle you don't need to stay in. You can. Nobody said it was going to be easy. But I guarantee you that you have a choice about what legacy you're going to leave. Ask me if I felt relieved that I did not get on the side of the people who kept saying, just forgive it and move on. Because like I said, it would have been easy enough for me to do because that's not my personal experience. But like I said, a position of privilege does not give you the right to tell other people that they're not telling the truth about situations that are not yours. A position of privilege means you need to use the strength of the position, as they say, to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. We do that on this channel. My soul is grieved today, though. My soul is grieved because it's 2024, and we still should not be living in such a way that Black young people celebrate our deaths as older Black people. We went through a lot to be free. We're going to be celebrating June 19th, but we needed to be for real this year. And I just put that out there for us to consider. I keep mentioning channels for people to listen to get free, that we can help our sisters connect to resources to help them. I keep advising Black men, and I look at my channel and I know better than a whole bunch of people not liking it, but that's okay. You continue to listen and you just can't speak over here. But hey, we did that video too. I don't want anybody, because I knew the young lady's father before I knew he was an abuser. And I can't say that from a decade out, I saw that coming. But I saw enough to know she was telling the truth when it did come out. I don't want anybody to have a legacy such that their name rots. But I will tell you, you keep on doing the foolery, that's where you're going. You will go where fools spend eternity, and your name will rot. Today, on June 2nd, all I could do is go back to Sister Up and let it be known to everybody around there and put my local reputation on the line and say, yeah, that happened. It's rotting. The name is rotting for a reason. That happened. It is what it is. Deal with it. And also to make myself a bigger target. It's just like, yo, pick on somebody your own size. I dare you. Y'all know about Auntie Love on Why Aunties. You mess with her, baby. See, I don't always announce. She lets you know. Don't do it. We got to stand with our sisters and our younger sisters, our daughters, our granddaughters, our nieces. We got to stand with our older Black sisters as they finally have being acculturated to put up with foolery, come out and tell their story. You know, men are so mad that, divorced after 35 years, 35 years of stuff that these women now have platforms to talk about what was going on that whole time. 35 years, 45 years, women are getting free. Women file 80% of the divorces because we can tell the stories about what's going on in those homes to ourselves and our children now. Now, of course, I'm single again, a fight I'm not technically in. But see, again, this hit close to home. I have no children, but I love my students. And as they become Black women, I see the same kind of patterning over and over and over again. We're not going to do this. Not on my watch. We're not going to sit silently by. If I have nothing else to work with, I have a voice. We're not going to do this. We're not going to side with the enablers. We're not going to pretend that all is well when it is not. We're going to bear witness when we need to, and more. Like I said, Auntie Love will tell you straight up. I'm not going to tell you straight up. You find out when it happens. We're not going to do this. We're not going to continue to enable these patterns. We're not going to continue to enable Black women and children being savage in their own homes. We're not going to continue to do this. No, we're not going to do this. No. Because every one of you listening, if you are willing to think about it, this hits close to home. It might even be you. As Stephanie Perry said it so well, we ain't got to live like this. Our daughters, our granddaughters, our friends, our students, we ain't got to live like this. Auntie Love talks a lot about self-defense. I think a lot about that now. If I could go back a decade in time and this child had still a child had come running to me. I think about a lot about that now. There's a lot of things we got to do, Black women, to protect our children and not to pass the trauma down. Because, like I said, I know somebody who's healing from a journey of being severely abused because a Black woman didn't feel like she could buck up against the culture of men, but she just took that little boy. He's not a little boy anymore, but he's dealing with the trauma because his mother and grandmother were turned against their children as opposed to addressing the real source of the problem. We got to start addressing the real source of the problem and protect the children instead. Okay, that's all I've got. Again, my soul is stirred. Actually, by the time you see this, it'll be June 3rd. I'm recording it this evening because it's on my mind. When the savage mistreatment of Black women hits a little bit too close to home, for some of you, you've survived it. And whatever the day of your freedom is, I bear witness with you. Go for it. Tell your story. Don't be afraid. Because only when we tell the truth are the liars exposed and made to know you are not going to be covered anymore. And there will be consequences to this behavior. All right. It's a heavy start to the Tuesday. We may have on the climb later. I have some other things I want to talk about, but it was necessary to do this video. All right. But y'all have a good day anyway. Goodbye.